What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Minnesota Golden Gophers are up next. Coming off a bit of a disappointing season last year in 2023. They were 5-7 last year, so they were not supposed to go to a bowl game, but they got an invite, so they were able to win that bowl game and go 6-7. So maybe that's not a disappointing year, but in my opinion, for a team and a program that's very consistent every year, it was kind of a disappointing year for PJ Fleck and this Minnesota team. But my thoughts on this team, though, for 2024, I think Minnesota is going to be pretty good and a pretty decent team. They'll be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins. Maybe even 9 wins if they were able to make that possible. So Minnesota should be pretty good. The offense should be pretty decent, and the defense was really good last year. So the defense, I think, is going to be pretty good again this season. So let's go ahead and get to the schedule now here for 2024. This is the schedule here for Minnesota. Again, they were 6-7 last year in 2023, but overall they were 5-7 because they did, end up getting into a bowl game. They got an invitation to go to a bowl game and everything. But you look at the schedule here for 2024. Let's go game by game and give you a record prediction here for the Golden Gophers for 2024. They start things off on a Thursday night, of course, against North Carolina on August 29th. This will be a Thursday night game, of course. This will be a home game here for the Golden Gophers. It's also a rematch from last year in the non-conference. This is a revenge game here for Minnesota. Last year, North Carolina pretty much dominant on the defensive side of the football. Minnesota actually couldn't really handle the North Carolina offense last year either. I think Minnesota tried to run the football a lot last year to keep that North Carolina offense off the field for as long as possible, but that, of course, did not really work. This time, I think it will really work. North Carolina's going to have a new quarterback this year, but they're still going to go hurry-up tempo on the offensive side of the football. But, Minnesota going to try to run the football in this game once again, and I think they're going to probably run out the clock this time. And plus, playing at home, I think that definitely does favor Minnesota here. They also got a ton of experience more than North Carolina does. North Carolina lost a ton of production from last year, but they reloaded in the transfer portal. So I think Minnesota, they get revenge on North Carolina. Again, this game's going to be on a Thursday night, and usually we see these weeknight games. Some teams struggle on opening nights. So I think Minnesota takes care of business, or I should say not take care of business against North Carolina. I think it's still a game that goes into the fourth quarter, but I got the Golden Gophers getting the win here. And then they take care of business against Rhode Island and Nevada. So I got them starting out 3-0 here, and then they play Iowa here to open up conference play on September 21st. Last year, Minnesota went on the road and defeated Iowa on a game-winning punt return for a touchdown, or I should say it was actually a costly, penalty by Iowa and everything from last year's game. I do expect a low-scoring game here. Playing at home, though, that does favor Minnesota here in this one just by a little bit. I think both of these teams are pretty even. Maybe Iowa definitely has a slight talent advantage, but I think Minnesota playing at home pulls off the win in a low-scoring type game. I kind of been back and forth on this game as well, so I'm going to go with Minnesota here to knock off Iowa to open up Big Ten play here. So I got them starting out now 4-0. And then after that, they'll play on the road here at Michigan on September 28th. First road game of the season here for the Golden Gophers. Is a very tough place to play. Michigan's not going to be the same team as they were last year, so I do expect Minnesota to probably compete in this game, but it won't be enough, though. I think Michigan definitely still is the more talented roster. Michigan probably not going to be really good on the offensive side of the football, so the defense, both defenses might rule the day here in this one. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to go with, Michigan here to knock it off because they're playing at home. So I got Michigan winning that game, and I got them giving Minnesota their first loss of the season, so that puts Minnesota's record now at 4-1. And then after that, they'll play at home against USC here on October 5th. This will be a home game here for the Golden Gophers. I do expect Minnesota to probably bounce back here in this one, but I think this is another game where I think Minnesota probably is going to want to run the football. USC is going to go quick tempo on the offensive side of the football. They're going to try to make this game a shootout, but I think the Golden Gophers defense really steps up in this one. They bounce back after the loss to Michigan. And plus, this game is at home, so I think Minnesota definitely wins this one. But I do expect a really, a competitive game here in this one. But I'm going to go with Minnesota here just because they're playing at home. So I got Minnesota getting the win there, and that puts their record now at 5-1. Next game is on the road here at UCLA on October 12th. So they have to go out west here to play UCLA here on the road. It's a very tough place to play. The Bruins are not going to be like the same team as they've been over the course of the years as well. UCLA with the new head coach and everything, Deshaun Foster taking over down there, but having to travel out west is a pretty long ways away, and I think that's definitely going to affect Minnesota's travel and everything. I think it probably doesn't make them play that well, and plus this is kind of one of those upset alert type games. I kind of been back and forth on this game, and plus this game is on the road. That's a very tough place to play on the road at UCLA. I do expect a close game. I'm going to go with the upset here. I think UCLA gives Minnesota their second loss here of the season, so I'm going to go with the upset there. I think UCLA wins this game, and that puts Minnesota's record now at 5-2. They finally get their first bye week here of the season before playing at home against Maryland on October 26th. I think this game is kind of similar to the USC and North Carolina games. Maryland is kind of usually explosive on the offensive side of the football, so you expect Maryland to kind of go a quick tempo here and really make this game pretty much a shootout. But I think Minnesota is going to run the football in this game, and they're definitely going to wear down the clock and everything. So I think Minnesota playing at home also. That does favor them pretty well in this game, so I'm going to go with Minnesota here to get their 6th win of the season, and that bye week does also help them out as well. So I think Minnesota beats Maryland here on October 26th. That puts their record now at 6-2, and then after that, it's a road game against Illinois here on November 2nd. I'm not really that high on Illinois this year. I know a lot of people saying they're going to be really terrible this season. I don't think they're going to be terrible, and I also don't think they're going to be a very bad team. This game is in the month of November. It's kind of one of those upset alert type games. Illinois probably going to try to definitely play really hard in this one, but I don't think it will be enough. Minnesota definitely the more experienced team and definitely the more talented team as well, and definitely the more consistent team. I'm going to go with Minnesota here to knock off Illinois here on the road, so that puts their record now here at 7-2. And then after that, it's a road game against Rutgers here on November 9th. This is definitely one of those upset alert type games, especially like the UCLA game and everything. I think both of these teams are pretty even. Rutgers with a lot of experience coming back. They were definitely a very big surprise last year. I do expect them to be pretty good again this season. I think Minnesota definitely has the talent edge in this one, but I think Rutgers, playing at home, they're going to come out really fired up in this one. It's definitely kind of one of those upset alert type games. Minnesota's probably in the top 25 by this point with that record at 7-2. So I think Rutgers pull off the upset here in a low-scoring, close type game. It goes into the fourth quarter. A turnover can probably change the difference, and then also maybe even a game-winning touchdown could change the difference as well. So I got Rutgers pulling off the upset there, and maybe also Minnesota's looking ahead to their next game in about a couple more weeks, and that's against Penn State here at home on November 23rd, and they get a bye week before playing this game, which is a really good spot for a bye week. And I've already done my Penn State video, and I did choose Minnesota to pull off the upset here. I think they do that. I think it's a low-scoring type game, but Penn State definitely will have the talent, advantage and everything. I think Minnesota probably will be an underdog in this game as well, but I think Minnesota proves everyone wrong. After a loss to Rutgers a couple weeks ago, they definitely overlooked Rutgers and definitely focused on Penn State in a couple more weeks, and I think that does help them. I think that studying and that bye week really does help them out. I think Minnesota pulls off the upset and beats Penn State here at home on November 23rd, and then the final game of the season is on the road here at Wisconsin on November 30th. Expect a low-scoring type game here in this one. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be pretty good this year. They do have a tough schedule, but this is also a pretty good game between these two teams. I think it's going to be a low-scoring type game. I think both teams are going to want to run the football. Really came down to the home field advantage. I've been back and forth on this game as well, and that's what I did in my Wisconsin video. I did choose the Badgers just because of the home field advantage. I'm going to go with Wisconsin here to knock off Minnesota here in the final game of the season. So I got Minnesota losing their 4th game here this season on the road at Wisconsin on November 30th. So my prediction for Minnesota for 2024 is 8-4. Like I said, I do expect Minnesota to be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins. maybe even 9 if they were able to somehow, beat UCLA on the road and also beat Rutgers on the road. This team can go 10-2, but they can also go 9-3 with losses to probably Michigan, UCLA, or Rutgers. If they win one of those 2 games against UCLA and Rutgers, they go 9-3. But, I don't really see them beating Michigan on the road. I think Michigan just definitely has a more talented roster. Wisconsin, definitely a very winnable game. What if this team goes 11-1 and they sit right there as a dark horse contender in the Big Ten, and then also maybe even a dark horse contender for the college football playoff? But I'm going to go with 8-4 here for Minnesota. I really like this prediction because I do expect them to be right around 6, 7, 8 wins. This is a very consistent program in the Big Ten. That's where you really expect them to be. So 8-4 is my prediction here for Minnesota for 2024. Let me guys know what you think about this Minnesota team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be for 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.